Want to learn what's new with dental products and services? Come join us. Welcome, everybody, to the Digital Trade Show Dental Podcast, where I am sitting down with the amazing people in the industry and having them talk about their companies, their products, their why, their outlook on the future, all kinds of exciting things, and maybe even some things about them that you didn't know. I'm your host, John Stamper, and thanks for joining me. This episode of the Digital Trade Show Dental Podcast is brought to you by TSYS, one of the nation's leading providers of payment processing services. Whether you need a secure payment gateway, an easier way to set up payment plans for those patients that want to get the dentistry done but don't always have the funds up front, or a time-saving system to automatically post your credit card payments to your practice management software system at the end of the day, they have it. So it's one thing for me to come on here and list all the things that they do. It's a whole other thing to meet them in person and see it in action. So that's what I did. Got in the car, drove down to Charlotte, North Carolina. I got to spend a couple of days with their leadership team, all of their members that are speaking with dental practices all over the country. I got to listen in on some of the phone calls on some of the things that the dental practices need and really watch how they handle that whole situation. I was really impressed by their vision, but most importantly, how they have taken payment processing and humanized it. So I really encourage you to go check them out and learn more about some of the innovative solutions they are providing in this space. And right now, I'm really excited that for all of my listeners, they're making available a $300 activation credit to anybody that signs up for their service. Now, this is the equivalent to the cost of the machine for an entire year. One of the things that I also was impressed with is that how many times have you been using a practice management software system and you were using your merchant processing with that, and then you had to switch and you had to use the merchant processing system that came with that practice management software. Doesn't work like that with TSYS, and I think that's what's awesome is they're very, very flexible, and they've built their systems to be able to plug and play with whatever it is that you have in your practice. Another great thing, no contracts. So if you want to take advantage of this awesome activation credit that they're making available, just call 844-545-6255. That's 844-545-6255. They've got a great team there answering questions from dental practices all over the country. Go ahead and let them know that you heard about them on John Stamper's Digital Trade Show Dental Podcast, and they will be sure to answer any questions you have specifically about your payment processing and any and all the needs that you have around that very important part of your business. Be sure to mention the activation credit. And once again, the phone number is 844-545-6255. What's going on, everybody? Happy 2019 and welcome to the Digital Trade Show Dental Podcast. I am very excited as I look out towards the first part of this year to bring to you this podcast series in conjunction with Dental Consultant Connection. So towards the end of last year, I got the wonderful opportunity. I was introduced to Robin Morrison, who started Dental Consultant Connection, and we got talking and was learning more about her company and what she does. And it was very fascinating to me that there would be an organization that had pulled together coaches and consultants, all with their own unique expertise and focus, and then have them there and available based on the needs of a dental practice. I love the idea. As so many of you know, the decision to bring somebody into your practice, regardless of what they do, can be a very overwhelming decision. There's a lot of things to think about, and not one person knows anything and everything. And so certainly having the ability to be able to have focused experts in specific needs of your practice really is a cool idea. And so I thought that it would be helpful to bring on each one of the team members from DCC on a weekly basis. And so Robin and I talked about this, and we thought we'd put together a podcast series to get the year started. And the theme is practice strategies for the startup and the season. So what we're going to do is each week we're going to have one of her team members come on. We're going to start with having them come on the DentalCast Productions Facebook page on the I've Got Got 10 video podcast and have them just share 10 minutes worth of a couple of tips for the startup practice and or the seasoned practice. And then we'll have them come here on the Digital Trade Show Dental Audio podcast and have them share a little bit more about themselves, their story. As many of you know, that is something I'm very, very passionate about. I love people's stories. I think it is the one thing sometimes that is the difference between any consumer making a decision on what they choose to purchase, is knowing a little bit more about that person. And certainly if we can do that and we can showcase so many of the great personalities and people in dentistry and have them come on and share their story, it makes it a little bit easier when it comes to making that decision on the product or service that you want to purchase. So I am very excited, as we said, to get this thing started. Robin was very gracious to have one of her team members come on once a week, and we're looking forward to where this goes, but more importantly, providing great content for you, the dental professional, that you can take a couple tips here, a couple tips there, apply in your practice, but more importantly, if you want to take advantage of some of these great resources that Robin has available and the people that she's working with at DCC, would love to have you reach out to dentalconsultantconnection.com. Learn more about them, learn more about the great consultants, and I will certainly do my best here on a weekly basis to showcase their talents, learn more about their stories, and most importantly, always try to provide great content for you as you listen in your busy schedule. So, without a further ado, here is this week's episode, Practice Strategies for the Startup and the Seasoned. All right, everybody, welcome to another episode here on the Digital Trade Show Dental Podcast, where I'm spending time with the amazing individuals in the dental profession and having them come on and talk about their products and their services. And we're going to continue our podcast series with the team from Dental Consultant Connection. It's been an awesome 9 or 10 weeks that we've been going through here and bringing on a guest per week and having them share their area of expertise. And on today's podcast, I'm very, very excited to bring Mary Fisher Day, who's the founder of the dental business, Bites in Business, and something very new she's going to talk to you about, which is Legacy Dental Coach. And we're going to touch on today something that she's very passionate about. I have to say, I was moved when she shared with me what we were going to focus on today in regards to the work that she's doing with dental practices. So I'm excited to get into that as we talk about the value of your practice and your legacy. Before we get started, I do want to share a little bit about Mary. She's the author of The Dental Business, A Blueprint for Success, which is a book written for dental practice owners and managers. She's penned articles for multiple publications and blogs. She's been the featured guest on many dental podcasts and webinars. And Bites in Business. So this is really exciting. It's an educational event for dental professionals. She's got a panel of industry experts that offer advice on the latest in dentistry, answer questions of attendees. The events offer CE, great food, high value content. Bites in Business events are held in cities throughout the country, and she's growing. Very excited for her to share that. And you'll be able to reach out to her directly if you want to explore what that looks like. She's a member of the Academy of Dental Management Consultants and the American Academy of Dental Office Managers. She served the dental industry for more than 30 years. She's got both experience in clinical, managerial roles, and dental practices, and really has a great understanding of the dynamics that are required to help employees become a team. She understands the dental business and has seen the role management style plays in practice culture. The people that she works with, they get quick results, and every management program is customized to address urgent concerns first, strives to see her clients have successful practices, enjoy going to work each day, and have worry-free time away from the office. So it is my pleasure to bring to the Digital Trade Show Dental podcast from Charlotte, North Carolina, Mary Fisher Day. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, John. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Doing wonderful.
Good. Good to talk to you again.
Yeah, you as well. I know we just kind of closed things up on the video podcast and loved what you shared there and looking forward to you getting more into detail about that emergency directive and some of this very important thing. I know you said it. It's not always the easiest thing to address with dental teams and practices and dental practice owners, but it's important and it needs to be talked about. So I'm glad that you're going to share. Before we do that, would love to have you share your story and a little bit about your journey and most importantly, how you got to where you are today.
Wow, that's a long story, but I will try to shorten it for you because if you think about it, I've been in dentistry since 1983. So that's quite a while now. I said just a little over 30 years. Anyway, I have been in dentistry for, I guess it's going on 36 years. Yikes. Anyway, I love this industry, and I can't imagine doing anything else. I feel like I've played a lot of different roles with different practices, and I never get tired of learning about the latest and what's going on. And my passion is truly helping dentists who appreciate the help and want the help, and their team members to just, like I said, like the bio says, enjoy going to work every day and have a successful practice, and then have worry-free time away from the office. That's just very important to me when I'm working with a client. So like I said, I've been in dentistry since 1983. My family dentist is the reason I'm in it. Now, I grew up in a small town in South Carolina, and my mom and dad left me with them when they would go out of town some. And then when I was old enough, I became their children's babysitter. And I was just really good friends with them, and always admired what Dr. Maxwell, Charlie Maxwell, and his team did. So I always been patient. I graduated from high school a year early and went straight to dental assisting school because I knew that's what I wanted to do forever. And I did very well in school, and came out and started assisting, and did that for 17 years. I worked as assistant in practice management consulting, went through a whole lot. I experienced good managers, bad managers, good bosses, bad bosses. And then a large company approached me about training with them to become a practice management consultant. So I did that. And then a company approached me a few years later about coming on and working part-time with them in a transition. So I've worked in practice management transitions as an assistant and an office manager in dentistry. So like I said, I've played a lot of roles, I've worn a lot of hats. In 2002, I started the dental business, and it has been just amazing to see what I've been able to do with this business and the different divisions I'm adding to it. Bites and Business has turned out to be so much fun. It's not just fun, but it's a good way to you learn so much. And I put together a panel of experts, and the value for them, if you were to add their time up for 2 hours for everyone on the panel, it's probably close to $4,000 for 2 hours with them, and you get them for free or a small value. Mm-hmm. And then, like John said, I'll be launching a new division, Legacy Dental Coach, this week. And I guess that's my story as far as dentistry goes. I'm married and I have a daughter and 3 dogs. So It is, I love my life. I love dentistry. I love helping anyone I can who needs assistance and wants assistance in dentistry.
Well, thanks for sharing that. I know certainly, people that I've spoke with, there's a lot of respect for you and for what you do. And, as we go around this merry-go-round of dentistry, I love the fact that you mentioned, especially in the world that you live in, which is, working as a coach and consultant and working with a lot of these dental practices, which is, identifying those individuals that want help, that see the value in a coach, see the value in a consultant. And I think that's important. And I think, I know from some personal experience what you've had to build. It's not easy. It's not easy to continue to work with a lot of these practices at times and always make sure there's tons of value to add. And I don't think anybody ever debates that. The real question is a lot of times, helping them come to terms with moving forward and wanting to work with somebody else and the things that it takes to get there. So, a lot of respect for what you do. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that you've worked with that appreciate that. And that kind of leads me to what we're going to talk about today in regards to being influential and trying to motivate people to do what you're going to talk about, which is protecting the value of their practice and their legacy, which is not always the easiest thing to take the time to do. And so I know that's what we're going to address today. So would love to have you start there and, maybe start with your story. We'll get into some details of the work that you're doing on this.
Okay, that sounds great. Now, I was very moved a couple of years ago when I heard of a plane crash. Three couples were on their way, and I did share this in the video one, but I'm just share it really quick here too. The three couples that were on their way home from Corona World. Among the three couples were four dentists and two spouses, and plane crashed, and they all died, unfortunately. And between them, there were 11 children and 7 dental practices, 11 orphan children and 7 practices without an owner. And it's pretty devastating to the area, to the children. They had some friends come together and actually have to put out and do crowdfunding to raise money to take care of the children and just their basic needs in the immediate time being. And, of course, these couples weren't old. They were probably 40-ish at the most, and all of the children are underage. So, and then I keep hearing other stories about a doctor was exercising on his bicycle and hit by a car. Another doctor was flying a plane and crashed it and died. And all of these people, they're human like we all are. They don't want to think about about death. They don't want to think about disability. What happens if I die? A lot of times they assume their life insurance policy and their will take care of it. But that's just not the case. When you're talking about a dental practice, it gets a whole lot more complicated because the value of a dental practice falls 5 to 10% per week following a doctor's death and or disability, So yeah. I believe that there's a way to make that an easier process. Okay. So I've worked on this document. It's called I'm calling it an emergency directive, and it puts everything together about the practice so that if something happens to the practice owner and you're in a state like North Carolina where only a dentist can own a dental practice, right? And there are other states like that too. And you only get a limited amount of time to sell that practice. So you've got all the documents together and things that people honestly don't think about, you need on there, like you need a document that's just for the practice. So doing business as needs to be on their executor. There needs to be signatures for the executor. All of your essential accounts. You need your credit cards, your practice management software, your patient communication software. If you have an in-house membership plan, if you use CareCredit or ClearGauge, anyone like that, you need all of the information in a document with your username, login, password. Then you talk about credit cards. You need all your practice credit cards. Same thing. You need the account number, all of the login and everything with that associated with that. Same thing with your email addresses and your social media accounts, business and personal, because you just need that stuff taken care of because you don't know what somebody can do to your personal account later on. These things do get hacked, right, John?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I know we were talking a little bit about it. Personal situation. My father passed at 52. It was sudden. Nobody expected it. And I watched for weeks and months a lot of the challenging things and times and the my mother had to go through to kind of pick up all the pieces. And in my father's case, he didn't have a dental practice. He didn't have, people that were working for him. He was self-employed or what have you. But you're right. It's just one of those things that I'm sure there are a lot of people that it's always in the back of your mind, right? Anytime you travel, anytime you work, anytime you see something on the news, anytime you hear from a friend or what have you that something happened, that comes back. But then it's what am I going to do to kind of move forward and actually take the time to do this? And I think that's what I really love about your emergency directive is, let's get people to take the time to pull all this stuff together because of these reasons and thinking about everybody else in their lives that are involved, that if something unfortunate was to happen, then they're prepared.
Right. you can talk about children and get to people's heart really quickly. But what if, if your children are grown, or what if you're young enough and you have no children and your parents are going to be left to deal with this? You need to just think about everyone involved, because your debt does not go away because you die. Did you?
Right.
I don't think everybody knows that. You still have debt. The money owed is going to come out of your estate. So you still have to take care of these things. Some other things, I'm just going to throw this out there so in case you're taking notes, you'll have some ideas of other things that need to go in your emergency directive. Okay. So for sure you need to put like I said, all your credit card information. You also want your attorney's name, which hopefully your attorney will actually have a copy of this package, your emergency directive package, and your CPA's name, address, phone number, financial advisors, tax planning experts, anyone like that. All of that needs to be on the document. Your DEA information and the website address so that they can spend your DEA license immediately. Disability insurance, this is assuming you're disabled and don't die. Life insurance, any supplemental insurance, overhead insurance, so you can keep the practice going, hopefully. Of course, that depends on the rider and how it's worded in your policy. Sometimes the disability insurance is only active if you're disabled, or the overhead insurance, is only active if you're disabled, but there are policies you can get where the overhead insurance is active for a certain amount of time if you die as well. So you can keep the doors open, keep your team employed, and hopefully get somebody, whoever your executor is, whoever's handling this for you, can bring in some doctors to help keep your practice going. And that's what happened in the case of these doctors that were in the plane crash a couple of years ago. They had friends from college who all just took turns coming and working the practices to keep the doors open until they could get everything together they needed to sell the practice. Finally, one of the doctors owned 5 perio practices, and it ended up his partner did buy them. Now, and I'm sure it was, as much could, but I find myself wondering, did the practice sell for what it would have sold for if everything had been together? If you had maybe a baseline practice valuation and had all the tax returns together for the past three years. Some places want 5 years, but 3 years usually suffices. Most recent profit and loss report, your end of year report from your most recent, and then your this emergency directive, which would also have the name, position, email address, phone number, and address of all of your employees. So, and where your personnel records are located, everything, who your payroll company is, and how to get in touch with them.
Yeah.
And then even like your mortgage or your lease, you need a copy of your lease there, because who knows where it might be, right? Or a copy of your mortgage insurance. So all of that stuff together would make it so much easier on somebody to help deal with your practice in a timely way, so that you protect the value of your practice, protect your family, protect your team, and protect your legacy in the long run.
Yeah.
Because you don't want your legacy to be that, you died with no plan to take care of anyone.
Right.
And it does happen. It does. It happens often, unfortunately.
Can you share, Mary, some of as you've been working with this emergency directive and talking to practices, I know you've been working with practices for a long time and doing some great work, helping them grow and things like that. This is one aspect that I know that you're passionate about, that you talk to them about. Can you share maybe a couple of examples of, what was on the other side of this, right? So you're working with, a dental practice owner, and they were able to kind of go through this process and say, okay, I gotcha. We really need to gather this stuff up, and what you experienced on the other side of that when they were able to put all this stuff together and that peace of mind that came from it.
Exactly. So I have this one couple that I've worked with for years, and they're dentists, and they're in Tennessee, and I just adore them. But I remember specifically one year they were going on a trip, and their children were still underage. They're grown now. But they were going on a trip, and they were trying to decide whether they should fly together or fly separately. Can you imagine? So they had decided they should fly separately if in case something happened to them, because they're both dentists in the same practice, okay? A nice practice. And so and what we did then, this is before any of the emergency directive stuff really came to my mind to put it all, what all we need to put together. We drew up a document for them to sign for them to give to his brother and their attorney, and I had a copy for them to contact me so I could come straight up there and get everything together, because I know where everything is, and get their practice taken care of if something happened to both of them, you know, or if something happened to one of them, I could help the other, because they're going so emotional. When it's a spouse and children, immediate with family members, the last thing they're worried about when they lose their husband or their dad or their mom or their child or whatever is that dang dental practice. You know, they may worry about the staff, but they're worried about, you know, going on without them and how they're going to live the rest of their life, you know, without the person they love. So, yeah, and so we drew that up, and that really did give them peace of mind. I've actually had that happen a lot when I worked with in transitions more. I've had a lot of my older doctors, of course, they didn't ask for it. I originally did my version of this document. There are several versions of a will or what to do type thing out there, but not as specific to what you need to put all of it together for a dental practice. I've had other doctors, and I've said, do you have anything like that? And they're like, no. So they feel such peace of mind knowing that everything's in writing, and the people that need to know what to do to sell their practice and protect the value of it, bring in an associate or a temporary dentist or locum tenens, somebody who's doing fill-in, that sort of thing. Get them in there, keep the practice going, make sure the staff has as much peace of mind as they can, and get the practice sold so that the family has something out of that practice, you know, and it's not just picked apart, which is what usually happens, is it's picked apart. I'll take this piece of equipment. Well, I'll buy the patient charts, and I want the pay-in. You know, I've seen that happen too often, and that's really hard for a family and a team to have to deal with, to watch their boss that they've worked with for years and their husband, their children watch whatever, have them watch the practice picked apart like that. It's devastating. So, and I've seen that happen, and that's why I'm so passionate about this. I don't want to see it happen to anyone else.
Yeah. Well, you've made it easy, or easier, I should say, with the emergency directive, because I'm sure a lot of people are, where do I even start? And so, you know, you've removed that obstacle. And the other thing that I thought about in going through this process is that one of the obstacles may be nothing's going to happen to me, or it's going to be a long time, and we'll figure that out as time goes on. But I got thinking, just this whole process of hearing you go through this list of things really got my brain going to say, there's another value of doing that right now. I mean, I can't think of all of these different aspects of, like you said, grabbing the lease agreement. Who knows? I mean, maybe as a practice, you've been humming along and things have been going great and what have you, and you haven't looked at your lease agreement for a couple of years because you haven't had to. And by going through this process, you realize maybe you could change things a little bit, or the companies that you're working with, or a whole host of things, I'm sure, Mary, that just by going through this process of consolidating everything in one spot brings about value now.
Right, because when you spoke about the lease particularly, one of the questions is the lease transferable? And that's important to know. Is it transferable? And what are the what are the terms of transferring the lease. You need to know that stuff, and people don't look at it. They forget how long they have left on their lease, and how often they're going to have their rent increased and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's important to look at. And like you said, they can make some changes now.
Absolutely. Super important. I would love to have you share something new that you're launching. We talked about at the beginning, this Legacy Dental Coach, which kind of falls a little bit in line with this individual resource that you've put together that we're talking about today. But share with everybody that and kind of your why on that and some exciting news on how that's going to be able to help the people that you're working with as well as others.
Right. And like you said, it does kind of all come together, because what I've found is a lot of times as a dentist has been practicing for years and years, at some point they start seeing a light at the end of the tunnel, or thinking, okay, I'm going to retire in 15 years, or I'm going to retire in 10 years, or 7 or 5 or whatever. Sometimes it's 2, but they don't have a plan in place for that. They don't know if their management systems are good, and if they have a healthy dental practice. All they know is there's money coming in and they're surviving on it. Quite often that's the case. So what they do is they go through life like that, and then one day they get tired, or they have an accident, or they just decide they cannot work the number of days they're currently working. So they just say to their admin, I'm going to start taking Thursdays off, or I'm going to start taking Mondays off. And they're like, okay, so I cancel the patients, and then you guys can just come in and clean the office and everything. So the overhead stays very close to the same. Obviously, you're not using the same disposables and everything, but the overhead stays close to the same, but the money is not coming in like it was, and the value of the practice drops. And so then when they're ready to retire, they said, all right, I'm ready to retire. I want this much for my practice. And, they make a lot of requests that are not, aren't even possible, because no one's put together a cash flow or even a high overview of a practice valuation, a baseline valuation. How do you know what you want for your practice? You may know what you want, but you sure don't know what it's worth if you're doing that. And then they're devastated when they finally get somebody to help them put it all together, and they realize that, oh my gosh, just 3 years ago, I was collecting $1.5 million. And I've slowed down because I've been tired, and now I'm collecting whatever, $750 or whatever. Well, that's a huge difference in the value of your practice, and especially if that overhead went from being 25% to now it's 40-something%. And so your active patient base has obviously had to drop as well. So all of those things affect the value of a doctor's practice, but they don't know what they don't know. And even if they go to seminars and hear about having a practice valuation or what it takes to value your practice, they don't realize that having a healthy practice where the AR is not hugely outstanding, and there's not tons of outstanding insurance claims, and there's not a lot of big delinquent accounts, things like that, all of that matters. All of that affects the value of the practice too, as well as the technology and the tenure of your staff, and how well you can delegate to them. So there's so many things that a consultant can come in and do to help you get your practice ready so you can enjoy the best years of your practice, because honestly, those last 10 years should be your most productive, profitable years. And if you're tired and ready to slow down, have somebody like me come in, help you get your practice ready, and bring in an associate to work the days you're not ready you don't want to work. And that will help keep the value up of your practice. And who knows, maybe this is the associate who will eventually want to buy the practice. You know, maybe
Yeah.
one day they'll buy the practice and you can role reverse and work for them part-time. There's so many ways to do this and maintain the value of your practice and protect your legacy, protect your team, and have your patients continue on and not have less than you need when you retire. And you can retire on your terms in this situation. If you start letting the value of your practice drop and you don't have a really good plan in place, you're going to have much less control over how the practice transitions because there's so many holes that could be put in there saying, well, your AR is too high, or you're producing 900,000 and only collecting 600,000, you know, things like that can, and you just need to have systems in place and your team ready to go and keep your value up, keep the numbers up.
Yeah.
And that will protect the value of your practice. And it sounds like a daunting task, and sometimes team members don't love having things change in their practice, but they're not going to love it if, you know, you sell the practice and somebody has come in there and had to lowball you because your practice wasn't in good shape, and then they realize that the new owner realizes that your team really hasn't kept up with what's going on and dentistry, and that's something a consultant can help you with all of that stuff so that you're not disappointed when you sell, and so that you can be on top of the transition and control how it takes place. You're more likely to be able to control who buys your practice and all of that sort of thing if you have a healthy practice to sell.
Yeah, and when I look at the work that you do and how you help teams, I almost see you as like maybe the speedometer, right? Like your value is based on what stage a lot of these practices are in. It takes somebody like yourself to come in and slow people down at times. And then once a lot of that stuff is done and things are in place, then you can speed them back up again, right? And but it is. I mean, when you talk to people and if you're like me and Mary, like everybody, I'm sure we could all think that, 15 years ago seems for many of us like yesterday, right? It's like you blink and it's gone. And, and last time I checked, the clock is still ticking at the same pace, right? So things aren't going to slow down as we move forward. And this is important. This is important stuff. And I think to your point, it's, the time that people take to do it is important, and they should reward themselves for the hard work that they did to set themselves up as they move forward. So I mean, I love that you're doing it. I'm excited about you launching this and to see where it goes. Yeah.
And one other thing back to your point about them rewarding themselves. Yeah, all the years in dental school, they sacrificed years of their youth, of their 20s and everything, studying and working hard and going through school, and then they get out and you struggle at first because you've got all kinds of things, student loans and practice purchases and all of this to pay. And so, yeah, you do deserve to protect that money that you've worked so hard to earn. And all it takes is, it takes a little effort, but you don't have to do it by yourself if you have somebody who knows what they're doing by your side to help you get it done and to help you then coast, hopefully. If you start this off when you're 10 years out, then be ready to coast. You can work what you want, have systems in place to bring in an associate. It does not have to be as disruptive as some may think it could be, but you do have to be willing to listen and maybe make some changes, possibly not necessarily with staff, but with possibly systems and how things are done.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to let everybody know if it's okay, legacydentalcoach.com. Can I put that URL out there?
Yes, but we're not. Oh my goodness! I'm sorry about that noise. We're not live with the website. It will be live by Monday.
Okay.
We're hoping to go live Sunday, but it's legacydentalcoach.com.
Okay.
And but if they want a copy of the emergency directive I have now, if any of your listeners would like one, they can email me at mary@thedentalbusiness.com, and I'm happy to email them a PDF file with what I have here. Or if they're interested in having me come work with them to do it, I'm willing to do that too. I'd be happy to do that too. So mary@thedentalbusiness.com.
Excellent. Okay. And I'll be sure, like all the episodes, to have that in the show notes. I want to transition as we move forward here to another exciting thing that you have done and are continuing to do. And I know we spoke earlier this week. You've got some visions of really growing this, of which I'm very excited about. And that is Bites in Business. So I'd love to have you share a little bit about that and the great work that you've been doing there and what it's all about.
Yes. Thanks, John. This is another thing I love. I guess I've just determined I love educating. I love education because when you don't know what you don't know, it doesn't matter. Like Roy probably said in his podcast, well, I know he did because I watched Roy, you can still get in trouble for what you don't know.
Yep.
I am so of course, somebody's going to do construction right now.
Oh, there we go. I love it.
You can still get in trouble for what you don't know, and you don't get a pass just because you don't know something. So it started with a friend of mine, Andy Cleveland, and I decided to do a little social gathering in the Charlotte area. And then the more we talked about it, I can't do anything simple. Well, I can, but I was like, well, why don't we put together a panel? He's like, okay. I said, a panel of experts. And that way we can answer a lot of questions in one space for these doctors and their team members and their office managers that are involved in different areas of the practice. So he's like, okay, cool. So we did our first one. It was Biscuits in Business because it was at this little place in Belmont called Nellie's. Actually, Nellie, for all of you people out there that know who the Jonas Brothers are, she's their grandmother. So, but she's no longer with us, and their parents started this restaurant. But anyway, that's just a piece of trivia some people might find interesting. So, but they're in, the Jonas Brothers are here a lot, and Nick and Priyanka just had one of their wedding receptions here, just FYI. So, anyway, so Biscuits in Business was so much fun. We really did. We had a good panel. We had a dental-specific attorney. We had lenders to talk about what's going on in the lending world, and in case a dentist were to want to refinance or acquire a practice or another practice or do a startup, all of that kind of stuff. What's going on with that? The dental-specific attorney, of course, laws that affect dentistry. And then this one is also a transition specialist. Jordan is his name, and he's awesome. And his partner, Megan Weber, was with him. Then we had Ann Duffy was our moderator. Ann Duffy is owner of Dental Entrepreneur Women and Dental Entrepreneur Business Beyond the Classroom. And we had a few other people. There were several of us on the panel. And it just went really well and was so much fun. And they're like, you got to keep doing this. So somebody asked me to do another one. So the next one was a nighttime one, and we found it was very well attended and a lot of fun. We had Rachel Wall on the panel and Brad McKeever, dental CPA, and of course, Joe again. We had certified financial planners. That was fun. Then we did one in Austin with David Cohen, who's a very well-known attorney in the industry, and Samir from Care Credit, and Dina Zost, and Andrea Greer, just a smart group of people. And then we've done another one here with more smart people. So, and I've got rescheduled this year. So my vision was putting a panel of experts together, put them together in front of our attendees, the people who signed up to attend, offer CE, which I have now. I can offer CE for this. Have it in a place where the food is amazing. Offer great food and drinks. Do a couple of little fun things too, because we're talking about serious topics. Make it fun too. In between, have a question and answer session, and then time for these folks to network. And it's not a super big event. I try to keep it. Right now, I'm trying to keep it to under 40 people, so that there is a more intimate atmosphere for these people to actually get to know each other, because we know that business relationships are more and more built on trust and relationships. You know, people hire based on trust and relationships more and more these days. So getting to know each other and feeling like you trust the person's very important. And it's just a lot of fun, and I'm super excited about it. And our next one is April 18th in Greenville, South Carolina. So you can go to bitesandbusiness.com to learn more about that. And then we will be having one in Chicago in June, and Dr. Roy Shelburne will be on that panel, as will Grace Rizza. So excited. And then we'll be having one in the Orlando area in October. And those are the three I have for this year so far. Thanks for letting me talk about this, John. I love this.
I think it's awesome, and I think certainly for anybody that's listening, I'm so inspired by you, Mary, because I think that many of us, have our day-to-day work that we do, but I think to then expand outside of that, right, and continue to add valuable work to what we do, or be a resource, or bring people together, or connect people together. And I think, that's what, Bites in Business, looks like. That's what it's all about. And to your point, if the food is good, hey, that's the first piece, right? I mean, if people know they can come and get a good meal, and then the content and the people there, that's a bonus, and which is awesome. So no, I think we're seeing more and more of those local events. I know certainly there are, so many events in dentistry where people can learn and get continuing education. And, let's face it, the world, everybody's busy with families and different things that they're doing or whatever. So when you can, attend a local event, I love the fact that you guys are taking it on the road and going to other cities and testing that concept over there. And I know, you and I talked the other day, this is kind of in the early stages, but maybe even down the road being able to, stream some of these live and maybe even take your concept and vision to a larger audience. So I'm excited to see where this goes for you. And Andy's an amazing guy, so it doesn't surprise me that you two have put something together that's working.
Yeah. Well, Andy was involved with the first one. He's been involved in others, but he's so crazy busy. So he's like, girl, you're nuts. You want to do all of this? He said, I'll help when I can. But so I've kind of taken it and put my own spin on it, more, probably a little more feminine, Mary spin. And he's still involved. He's moderating the one in Greenville, and I'm hoping he will moderate others, because he is one of my buddies, and he's so smart, but he is still involved. But I just don't want him to take any blame for anything I'm doing right now. Also, the offering of CE is very important too. I think that the fact that they can get CE at the same event with all of the information that they receive, it's really, that's another value add too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And CE is an interesting thing. I know there's a lot of people that get it because you have to for your license. But what I'm encouraged to see, Mary, is I'm encouraged to see so much content out there that is focused on how so many of these dental practice owners can move their practice forward. As you know very well, for years, continuing education was centered around the clinical aspect of a practice, and it should always be that, right? Certainly, I mean, that's, needs to continue and grow. But I think what more and more people are realizing is the value of these other pieces of the practice, which is development of people or business skills. I mean, all those things, as you know more than anybody, Mary, are so important, and why that should not be a part of a continuing education curriculum and count towards people's license, is always kind of, made me look twice at that. And so I think it's exciting to hear you talk about that, and that these really important topics you mentioned, accounting and all that stuff, it matters, right? The dentist practice, they're practice owners, and they need to know it.
And it's really interesting state by state. Some states allow practice management for CE and some do not.
Right.
So in the states that don't, I try to bring a clinical advisor on as well. Somebody
Sure.
like a hygiene expert and more than that even. And we do talk clinical. Like I've had Rachel Wall was on, Andrea Greer's a hygienist as well as a practice management consultant. I will have Tucker Smith on the next one. She's a dental hygiene coach talking about the latest in periodontal disease and coding and all of that. And so, we do try to add some of that in, but it's not all completely clinical focused. It's a lot of how to move your practice forward, what you can do and what you can't do. And I give a lot of tips about overhead and things like that. Just how to improve your bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome stuff. This has been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Great content. I love the emergency directive focus, really helping dental practice owners to think about their legacy, the value of what they've accomplished, and to keep that, where it needs to be, and to really appreciate and respect that, the people around them. For everybody out there, the dentalbusiness.com, certainly, Mary's website where you can learn a lot about the great work that she's done. We talked about bitesandbusiness.com, legacydentalcoach.com. And again, Robin Morrison and the team at Dental Consultant Connection. Mary will have her own page there. That's dentalconsultantconnection.com. You can learn about all of these great team members that are resources of the DCC. So, Mary, this has been a true pleasure to spend the morning with you and learn about the great stuff you're doing. And I really appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Okay. Thanks, John. I did want to mention, too, that I did write a book, just if anybody wants a really good resource with all of the stuff we've kind of talked about. And you can find it on Amazon. It's The Dental Business, A Blueprint for Success. Or you can go on the dentalbusinessbook.com and get it from there if you want to, because it's helped a lot of people out. I know even young dentists are using it to write their business plan for loans and everything. So
that's great. And I'll be sure to, thanks for mentioning that. And I'll be sure to put that link to take them directly to Amazon right in the show notes for the podcast. So
awesome. I hope everyone enjoyed this somewhat serious topics, but you know what? If you deal with serious topics up front, you can enjoy everything else later.
Exactly. Well, Mary, enjoy that beautiful day in Charlotte, and I'm sure we'll talk soon. Have a great week.
All right. Thanks, John.
All right. See you. Bye.
Bye.
What's going on, everybody? John here. Hope you enjoyed that episode here on the Digital Trade Show Dental Podcast. If you liked the content, liked the guest, and you are looking to add another podcast to your mix of podcasts, just seems like they're growing like crazy, right? Would love to have you visit iTunes and or Google Play and subscribe to the Digital Trade Show Dental Podcast. As I add episodes out there, those will come through on your listening device of choice, and would love to have you become a member. So moving forward, want to let everybody know that very excited to announce that I have taken all of my podcasts, Digital Trade Show Dental, Digital Classroom, the video podcast that I do on Facebook, consolidated everything into a brand new company called DentalCast Productions, doing a lot of the podcasts, also going to be doing live event recording, all kinds of fun things. And we've got a new website, dentalcastproductions.com. That's dentalcastproductions.com. Would love to have you visit the site. That's where you can listen to all the podcasts. We're also starting up a new newsletter. Going to have a lot of great information and content from my guests, and certainly we will only send you stuff if you choose, but I think you'll like it. I think there are a lot of great things that so many of the great companies in dentistry are doing, and would love to have them bend your ear and or your eyes in a newsletter for a small amount of time during the month to share the great things that they're doing. So go ahead and head out to dentalcastproductions.com. You can subscribe to the newsletter really easy, and we really appreciate it. And as always, if you enjoy the podcast, we'd love to have you share it out to all of your other dental colleagues. It is greatly appreciated. And with that, have a wonderful day.